The Merewether Coastal Protection Group wants the government to immediately dedicate those parts of Glenrock Lagoon it already owns and to acquire the rest of the land, and that's where the disagreements began. According to one resident who attended, those who own land in that area want to have a say in what happens to it, and they believe they're being railroaded by a strident environmentalist. But despite this opposition, the mandate was given to the Coastal Protection Group to push the gazettal of the area as soon as possible. Group spokesman Mr Bryce Gaudry.
This group arose out of the proposed commercial development by the Caldwells, and at the public meeting the committee was given the go-ahead to seek ways to protect that area. And we feel that the gazettal of the Glenrock State Recreation Area is the very best method of protection for the total area between Hickson Street and Dudley.
Four members of the Venturer Scouts group have been sitting at the top of the pole at Edgeworth since Friday. Jason Hicks, Sean Taylor, Craig Berquist, Martin Forbes and their raffle ticket selling friends have so far raised about $300. And while the boys say their camping experience has been novel and their location has had its advantages, they say they've had enough of the highlights.
What have you been doing to entertain yourselves?
Having Coke bottle fights at night, and the other day bombing some of the Venturers with water bombs below, and just listening to the radio and laying down, taking it easy, really.
Are you looking forward to coming down?
Yeah, a lot.
The dinner at the Newcastle Workers Club was to celebrate International Women's Day and the end of the United Nations Decade for Women. To add to the day, 20 local women artists and potters put their work on show. Leading Sydney sculptor Miss Pam Ledden opened the exhibition. She says women in art have always been there. It's just in the past 20 years they're starting to get the recognition they deserve.
It's always been women working as artists, making a living as artists, and I'm talking now from medieval Renaissance times onwards. They've always been there. In whatever the mainstream of art has been at a particular time, women have been there and practicing successfully. And it seems that it's really only in the last 2 centuries that women have dropped out of art history and therefore become invisible. And I mean, it's still true that most art students are women, and it's what happens to women between the time they leave art school and when they become exhibiting artists that is the really hard one to move. Right, that's fine, thank you.
The room, which was built at a cost of $45,000, will help to solve some of Shortland Clinic's space problems.
We didn't want one with a waiting list.
Therapy, staff training, and it's also hoped that it will provide a closer link between the clinic and the community. The room was opened by the Professor of Psychiatry at Newcastle University, Professor Beverly Raphael. She says the clinic is unique because it's weathered the many changes in psychiatry and the community and has maintained its standard of service through its 18 years of operation. One of the people who has made that possible is the now retired chief cleaner at the clinic, Mr. Tom Eldridge, and it was in recognition of his loyal service that the new room was named after him. Tom, you must have got very close to some of the patients.
Well, I did, which today, everywhere I go, I meet people that have been patients here, from here to the Queensland coast. And the other day I just happened to run into one in town. It was the first patient here, Peter, and it was an honor, and he was tickled to death to see me, you know. And some of the patients here used to ask us if we knew where they could get a job, and I did speak for them down at the hospital, where some of them are still there, where they're very proud to be, you know. Thank you that much, you know, for trying to do the right thing for them. And it does your heart good to be able to do that too.
In order to accommodate the taxation officers, the initial Commonwealth Centre proposals are now being reconsidered to allow for the necessary expansion from 10,600 square metres to 26,000 square metres of office space. Two site proposals are being considered. They are the Hunter District Water Board's garage site in King Street and a site proposed by the City Administration located on the block bound by Burwood and Hunter Street, Wheeler Place and King Street. The federal member for Newcastle, Mr Alan Morris, says new tenders will need to be called for the larger development, but both sites are still being considered, although the impact of the larger development on the surrounding area is now an important consideration.
The three prime criteria are access to the public, cost effectiveness and conformity with council planning requirements. However, in looking at that final one, the impact of a development on the site and adjoining areas is a very important consideration. Such impacts as the impact of consumers, of shoppers who work there, traffic, pedestrians and so on. So that is more in the council's court than the government's.
If plans for the larger centre proceed, new tenders will have to be called. What are the initial submissions?
Well, the fact is that there were 7 tenderers, of whom 6 were going to lose. So that's the name of the game.
What do you think is the most likely choice of site?
Well, I think at the moment it's absolutely wide open, and certainly the Minister yesterday afternoon assured the council representatives that he was absolutely neutral on it after hearing their submissions.
You're credited with the larger centre concept. What do you see as its main advantages?
Well, firstly, there's the much more money involved in being spent there. Secondly, we'll be guaranteed the extension to the tax office staff, which until there's space available, and on the current leases there isn't, we could never be sure of attracting the 800 people in 88 unless we had space to accommodate them. And now that'll be guaranteed.
Like farmers who are never completely happy with the weather, those involved in commerce and industry will always be able to see some problems ahead. But the general tone of today's Chamber of Commerce and Industry luncheon was definitely a positive one. And major issues threatening Newcastle's future do seem to be diminished. For instance, the Chamber's Sport Committee seems happy with the present coal situation and is now turning its attention to the expansion of grain loading at the port, using possibly obsolete coal unloading facilities. Other issues are broad-based. A low-level Swansea Bridge has the Transport Committee incensed, and there are continuing calls for the completion of the Stewart Avenue overpass. One change being fought strongly is a plan to centralise wool classing and shipping in Sydney.
If centralisation takes place, total chaos will take place. At Yanoora now, it's, all things being equal, about 10 days to handle the wool. At Newcastle, it's about 4. We even have the absurd situation where wool containerised here for shipment is trucked to Sydney or railed, and the ship that picks it up in Sydney calls it here for general cargo. Now that, you'll agree, is an absurd situation.
Another of the Chamber's committees is leading a push to have a corporate affairs office established in Newcastle. The Chamber claims a recent survey more than justifies such a move.
Injury compensation scheme. This was
At 8:30 this morning, the Shire President, Councillor John Musgrave, read the message of encouragement to the runners from the patron of the cancer appeal, the Premier, Mr Ram.
Hundreds of runners taking part in setting a fine example for us all. Their effort in linking the whole Hunter region in a human chain of runners, symbolising the great distance that can be covered if we all join together with a common goal. This same approach is fundamental to society's battle against cancer.
Councillor Musgrave introduced praline to the gathered crowd and passed on the special baton now containing the message from the Premier. First runner away was 14-year-old Vicky Hawkins, who was encouraged on her way by the Olympian Raylene Boyd. The team made good time in the overcast and breezy conditions, passing the baton over at suitable intervals. The police and a courtesy bus were on hand all the way to ensure a safe 40-kilometre journey from Murrurundi. All team members were patting the bitumen as the baton was brought into Scone proper itself ahead of schedule around midday. They were welcomed by a group of school children, townsfolk and the local Lions Club. The Shire President, Councillor John Gregg, read the scroll from the patron of the cancer appeal, the Premier, Mr Ram.
Ladies and gentlemen, a message from the Honourable NKRN QC MP, Premier of New South Wales, for the NBN Television Marathon.
All the runners about to take off on the Scone to Merriward leg of the marathon were called forward, but of course there first had to be an official photograph taken in front of the statue designating Scone as the home of the thoroughbred. Then the youngest runner in the marathon, Matthew Lee, began the 65-kilometre journey to Merriward. With conditions so suitable for running, it was expected the team would be in Merriward before the scheduled 6 o'clock. There are 5 routes altogether in the Telethon Marathon, from Taree, Gloucester, Gosford and Wyong, as well as the Upper Hunter. The runners on the final legs of each of these will converge on the International Sports Centre on Sunday afternoon at the climax of the Thunder.
Each year, Free Wheels plays to about 35,000 children in schools all around Newcastle and the Hunter Valley. And today, about 160 lucky Cardiff South children were among the first to see Free Wheels' newest show, Peacemaker. Now in its 9th year, Free Wheels presents bright theatre with serious themes. And with Peacemaker, the aim is to teach youngsters tolerance, understanding and peace, as 2 groups of people, the red people and the blue people, tear down a dividing wall, to learn that they're not so very different from each other after all. Well, the youngsters greeted the show with a mixture of rapt attention and squeals of delight, and at the end, when that dividing wall came down, there was a near riot. And after the show, I asked some of them what they thought. So what did you think of the play? Good. In the questions. What did you like best? Everything. You liked everything, did you? Good boy. And what did you think about the play? It was good fun. But what did you think about the play? Did you like it? And what was it about? Red and blue people. And what, were they the same or were they different? Different. And what did they find out in the end? They were friends. Peacemaker has been booked into more than 40 schools for performances in Term 1.
The scroll message from the cancer appeal patron, Premier Ran, was read by John Harvey, former Manly Rugby League international, who'll be playing with Foster this year. The ceremony took place in Tuncurry Park on the northern side of the bridge. John Harvey handed the baton to the first runner in the 5-man relay team, which will carry the telethon spirit over the 65 kilometres to Bulladila. All the runners had to qualify in selection runs in February. Those who reached the required standard went into the barrel, from which 5 names were drawn out. These runners left Merriward at 9 o'clock this morning. 2.5 hours later, they were more than halfway to the end of their leg at Denman. The teams of runners are carrying a baton containing a message from the patron of the cancer appeal, Premier Ran. In all, there are 5 originating points: Murrurundi in the Upper Hunter, Foster Tuncurry, Gloucester, Yamina and Wyong.
All runs at times so that the final participants in each route will converge on the International Sports Centre on Sunday evening at the climax of the Telethon's Sunday Fun Day. Although they had been running in relays, the whole team was padding the bitumen into Denman, where they arrived slightly before schedule. Even so, the town had come to a halt, especially the local school, to welcome the carriers of the telethon spirit.
For the team
The
now
message
going
from Premier
from
Rand
Denman,
was delivered from the
Muswellbrook.
scroll outside the Denman Hotel by local councillor Peter Moore.
Now more than ever, continued research in oncology is crucial.
The baton, once again safely containing the scroll, was handed to the new team of runners, whose job it was to deliver it safely to Muswellbrook by 4:30 this afternoon. The weather has been kind, overcast, and therefore cooler than it could have been at this time of year.
The Soldiers Point Public Wharf is only the third to be built in Port Stephens and the first since 1939. It was built by former Sydney businessman Peter Dawson. He bought the adjoining land to retire on, but became concerned at the erosion of the beach. To finance the dredging needed to rebuild the beach, Mr. Dawson hatched a plan to build and sell 23 townhouses on the site, and to attract buyers he also built a marina. The wharf was then built to reach the marina. In an official ceremony today, the wharf was donated to the Shire and the public. Acting Shire President, Councillor Bruce Mackenzie, told a large audience that like the Council's Salamander development, the project is an example of what can be achieved with imagination and foresight. With the help of Councillor Joe Redman, Councillor Mackenzie then made the handover official. Peter Dawson has spent $4 million on the project. The money has saved the beach, given the public a new wharf, and when the townhouses are completed in August, Mr. Dawson says they will be the equal of any in the region.
After lying in second place overnight, Katerina Fitz pushed her way back to the top with an impressive free skating program, securing her second world title in a row. The victory prevented a clean sweep by the Russians, who had already won the men, pairs and dance titles. Fitz later said of her win that it had been the best performance of her career. She said she intended to defend the title once again next year.
Are of special significance because they were painted by Maitland's own Cecily or Peg Mitchell. All 86 works displayed have been borrowed for the exhibition from Mrs. Mitchell's family or friends. During her 57 years, Mrs. Mitchell was instrumental in establishing the Hunter Regional branch of the National Trust of Australia. She was one of the founders of the Maitland Art Prize. She designed Maitland's coat of arms, and she completed her book, Hunter's River, before her death in 1969. Peg Mitchell was best known for painting the flowers, and her son, Mr. Robert Mitchell, says she got her eye for detail while studying to be a tracer for the Hunter District Water Board.
She's a mechanical drawer. She's one of the first women in the Hunter Valley to be trained as a mechanical drawer. And she thought flowers were mechanical painting, different to painting portraits.
Taking shape in the busy commercial heart of Maitland, the new supermarket and specialty store complex is one of the biggest construction projects the city has seen for some time. A huge 350 cubic metre slab of concrete was laid today by local contractor Torres. A bridge pump was used to pour the tons of wet concrete required, and 20,000 tonnes of materials went into the mix. The Bullaroo-based company will lay 2 more slabs of similar size later this week as part of a 6,000 cubic metre contract. A further contract with another 8,000 cubic metres is up for grabs. The shopping centre will cost $20 million to complete and should be ready to open its doors to the public by Christmas.